Gee, we're right on time. Good.
Right.
Setting it up. Okay, and we're live. All right.
All
So
right.
let me start with introductions and we'll jump right in. We have a lot to cover.
All right.
So, welcome everyone to our first of two town halls here in April. Walter McKenzie and Kathleen McClaskey. Excited to talk to you about advocacy at the state level tonight. For those of you who have been with us before, you know that this is a safe place for educators to come together. We keep this nonpartisan. We understand people can run the political spectrum. We're not into conspiracy theories or being alarmists. We're dealing in facts, and we want to help you build constructive strategies. So when you leave tonight, you feel like you're better informed and you have some ideas on how to move forward advocating for what's important for education where you live and work. We have a commitment to your privacy, so please know we won't publish, share, or mention you by name or any other identifying information in supporting your voice as an advocate for public education. And so without further ado, I want to introduce to you Kathleen McClaskey, CEO of Empower the Learner and founder of Make Learning Personal from the great state of New Hampshire. And this is Kathleen's particular passion. As we've been doing planning over the months, she's kept us focused on the finances, follow the money, the budget, and now looking at the state level, because at the federal level, decisions are already being made that
Mm.
are forcing us to look more locally. But I think that's a great conversation to have. So, Kathleen, welcome.
Well, thanks, Walter, for inviting me to talk about this, along with others that will join us tonight.
Yep.
And this should be really recognized as a way to become aware of what's happening in your state. And the use of vouchers, or what's called ESAs, Educational Savings Account, that's a little deceptive. But I want to talk about that and what you can do. But we'll take a look at the things that are going on currently. And we all know that the Department of Ed is being disbanded, but of course, it can't be eliminated. Only an act of Congress actually can do that. But where do we go from here? I've been in the educational technology world and I've been at the Department of Ed many, many times. And there's no longer an ed tech division in the Department of Ed. And next month, I'll be advocating on behalf of my organization down in DC, along with Cheryl Abshire. So Cheryl and I have been doing that for, I would say, close to 25 years, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way back to the Bush administration
Yeah.
is when I started. So anyway, everyone should know about vouchers and what's going on in their state and how that may impact them in their public schools.
And hopefully we'll also have time to talk to all of you who are attending and ask what do things look like on the ground in your state and any way we can help with that. So
Um,
good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So Kathleen's getting ready to share her screen.
Okay, so thanks, Walter, for reminding me.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go.
Um, but um, okay, let's see. All right. So thank everyone for joining us tonight. And we're going to talk about disrupting and transforming education this particular year and every year going forward. And I kind of want to start off again with what are the goals for Project 2025 in education? And the word are vouchers, vouchers, vouchers. Other words, sometimes called educational savings accounts in 29 states. And what they do is they pay tuition to homeschoolers, private or religious or non-religious schools. And every state has a certain set of legislation so that sort of guides what actually gets paid for tuition. Um, Eliminate the Department of Education. Well, that has begun for sure. And, but of course, we already know that only Congress can actually remove a department. And we have no idea when or how that will go. Um, turn the money from Title I and IDA into block grants to states, and hoping that Title I money will be used for vouchers. So there's quite a bit of money there. I think there's close to $18 billion across the country that's really distributed. And that is, I believe, going to happen actually in the next fiscal year. So also, and Head Start. Head Start program has been around for quite a long time. It really does give children that are either in poverty or in need to really have an opportunity to participate in the Head Start program. And that's been around, I think, for well over 50 years. And I think that's going to be eliminated if it hasn't been already. But the goal really is to end really to erode K-12 public schools. And that is probably the saddest news that I ever heard. We all grew up, I particularly grew up in public schools. I think almost anyone that I know went to public schools and have their kids going to public schools. But that is the goal, by the way, to Project 2025. And there's a section in that project, I think it's chapter 11 or something in that document, but it clearly outlines exactly what they're going to do, and they are doing it. They're following this actually pretty much to the T. It's just it's a roadmap. So anyway, so I located this particular map, and even though it's not interactive in this particular presentation, I do want to tell you that this happens to be an excellent map to really go in and take a look at what every state and how they're using school vouchers in their state. So it's under hoover.org/school choice map. And I believe that Walters also is going to have that available on the website.
Yep, it's in the chat box, so they can
Okay.
click right
Okay.
now.
Yep. So you can click right now, take a look at your state, because knowing what's happening in your state is going to be really important if you'd like to advocate for any kind of change in your state. So what does that look like state by state? Well, there's universal, what's called near universal programs in 9 states. There's expanded programs in 3 states. And then and there's what we call vouchers, voucher systems in 23 states, along with Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. Okay. Okay. So I just want to give you some insight into what's exactly happened in my state, and can happen just about in any state. But if you could take a look at this date, that's just a few weeks ago. And 2 bills were passed called Universal School Voucher Bills. And what happened here is that at one time there was a cap on what type of income you could have in order to receive a voucher. But now that has been totally removed. That means that anyone with any child that wants to go to a private school, parochial school, Christian school, can actually apply for vouchers. They project that property tax increases will go up to 10 to 20%. And they're really expecting the cost to be over $100 million per year. Right now, it's running, I think, around $20 million. So they're really seeing that this is going to increase significantly. So anyway, what happens to these particular bills is they do just one thing. They give taxpayer dollars to the wealthiest families now in New Hampshire to subsidize their private and Christian school tuition and homeschooling costs. And they really, there's a lot of latitude in which they can actually use that money for. So one of the things that we'll talk about before, before the end of this presentation is how you can go and discover what's happening in your state, and more specific, the legislation that may either be proposed or not proposed. So I found a resource who talked about Arizona just recently, and there happens to be a voucher system that they estimated last year would cost $65 million, and it ended up costing $300 million. And now that state has a deficit of $1.4 billion shortfall in their state. But consider that. So they're projecting here $100 million in a very small state like ours. And that could actually be triple. And that would really probably send our property taxes way up. Just to make a note, by the way, is that we support our schools through property tax, not through state tax. So about, I'd say, I'd say 80 to 85% of our taxes go directly to schools. And we actually do vote, by the way, on budgets, both the school budgets as well as the town budgets. So that's something that happens every March here in the state of New Hampshire. But anyway, you'll definitely have to take a look at what happens in your particular state. And but this is a very sad affair here, let me tell you. Okay, because our property taxes are really quite high in New Hampshire already. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Title I. And Title I, of course, has been around for, I think, close to 60 years. And then the next fiscal, this fiscal year, there was $18 billion. It is the largest program in K to 12, and it's really designed to help children from low income families. So Title I can, I think, be found in probably, I want to say 80% of the schools in the United States. And it encourages, by the way, lawmakers to make the program a block grant to states with very few restrictions on how it can be used. Well, there's the real, caveat here is that all this money is going to come in block grants. There's going to be legislation that's probably going to be designed in every single state on how they're going to be using this Title I money. And not necessarily, but they'd love for you to use it for vouchers. And they really plan on ending Title I and probably in a decade. Think of this, $18 billion taken out of public education. And by the time they end this particular program, it's going to be pretty significant, probably much larger than that. But Title I will end at some point because they plan on having states subsidizing Title I programs. And unbeknownst to most citizens, they have no idea that this is happening, that this won't exist anymore. And this has been a major funding source, I would say, in the majority of schools in the United States. We already know that this is going to move from the Department of Ed to the Department of Health and Human Services, who have no familiarity with Title I programs at all. Okay, interesting concept, right? And the future of IDA is something else. That at this point is $14.2 billion in federal money that actually is given to school-age children with disabilities. But legislators can take this particular money and convert it to no strings block grants and to the states and use their own legislation to decide how that's going to be used. I would be very surprised if there aren't parent groups all over the country who are preparing for all of this. Most of you may be familiar with that there happen to be parent organizations that really focus on supporting parents with children with special needs. And if you're not, they're actually great organizations and valuable organizations to parents. And again, they could actually take this money and pay it directly to parents of children with disabilities. Of course, I'm not too sure if there's going to be a process or what's going to take place on how that's going to happen, but every state will have to probably come up with some legislation on how they would distribute that particular funds. But again, all this whole piece is going to move to the Department of Health and Human Resources, U.S. Department of Health and Human Resources, very shortly, if it hasn't already. Okay, so some of the things that I want to talk about is that you have to really sort of start connecting with your state legislators. And so one of the important things, and the first thing you can do is you can go back to that map, by the way, that you saw earlier, and actually locate your the what your voucher system is in your particular state, or ESA legislation is, and really understand that, um, and understand all the things that it does include. Also, contact, know who your local state legislator is and who represents your town or city. And it's pretty easy in my neck of the woods to actually find that out. We actually have a very large legislative body, even though we have a very, very small state. So there's like probably 3 representatives just in my town of 11,000 people.
Wow.
But yeah, so there's a lot of legislators here. And so you definitely need to begin conversations with them, meet up for coffee or something, or just get on the phone and see if you can meet up with them in person, because they're probably local. Um, you need to really know what you agree or disagree about your voucher system and why you take that particular stand. Okay, if you're a public educator, you certainly have a probably have a certain ideas about what you would agree or disagree about vouchers, because vouchers are taking money away directly from your public schools. Okay, um, but also take a look at any proposed legislation. So you saw that legislation that just got passed here in New Hampshire. That actually just came up probably about, I'd say, 2 months ago. Okay, and our legislators are only in session for, I think, only like maybe 6 months or so, and that is extremely important. And to find out what's going to happen with those block grants around IDA and Title One. Um, you know, there isn't probably another time I can even think of where we all need to be better citizens of our country. We need to be more active, because I think we're fighting for things that we never thought we would have to fight for. And it's important that we all become advocates for the things that you believe in are necessary to have a well-educated population, and where the schools, public schools are not getting diminished, um, because of the way that money is being used. And just really become aware of who your legislators are, and yeah, invite them over and or meet up somewhere and just have a really good conversation with them and really look at your legislation and things, because believe it or not, that um, they probably have heard from a lot of us lately, especially at the federal level, but at the state level, maybe not so much. But this would be a really good way to have a conversation with them. So it's all about, making a difference, okay? Um, and one of the things you want to think about is really describe what progress in public education looks like for you. What is that going to look like even a few years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Um, and what are you able to do to help make it all happen? And I'd love for you to go to this Padlet site and share what action you plan to take. And here's the link, and Walter's actually also probably included the link in the chat. So really go in there and say, this is what I'm going to do. I've actually, by the way, have not met up with legislators here locally, but that's one of my goals, is to meet up with legislators, because I know that this Title One and IDA money is coming down, and I'm really concerned, and I want to share that concern with um, with the legislators. And if they don't hear from you, who do they hear from? Okay, so be proactive, take a stand about what you want that money to go to, and try to make that influence. Uh, if you don't want it to go to vouchers, just say so. Just say, hey, I don't want all this money going to vouchers. I want it to support programs to help kids that may live in poverty. Okay, what it was really intended for. You want IDA money to go to support children with disabilities who have challenges. And you want that money to be used well. And because let's face it, it's all our tax money, federal tax money, that's going to our schools, and we want to make sure it's used well, and you have to have a voice around all of that. So please share that out anyway. Okay. Um, any discussion around vouchers and ESAs or what I had to what it means to public education? Anyone? Hey, jump in.
Yeah,
Walter?
let me I'm here. Let's unshare the screen.
Okay.
And I was just going to share our links
Let me see.
for news items of school vouchers around the country in the chat box. So people could just put and click. I shared the link to the Padlet. I've shared a couple of other links as you've been talking. For some reason, that is not. Let me try one more time. Technology is great when it works. Here we go. Chat box, paste, paste. I don't know. It's not allowing me to paste that set of links. But anyway, thank you, Kathleen, for the presentation. Welcome, Samantha Shane from New Jersey. Samantha has had an incredibly busy day and is gracious to jump from her last commitment to this
Sam.
commitment. So thank you for making it.
Yes, I'm excited to be here, and I feel like this is such an important topic. I actually had the opportunity about 2 years ago to serve on a fellowship that was all about advocating and policy work in our state. And so there's an organization called 50 Can, and that's like the national one. And
Okay.
I did the fellowship for Jersey Can. So not every
Wow.
state has like a 50 Can affiliate, but there's a few of them that do. So I know Tennessee is one, Carolina, Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Hawaii actually has one. And so they offer fellowships at the state level. And it really is a great way to like learn about like the more local issues and how to make an impact at the local level. But then the 50 Can is also focusing on the local level, but then also the state level.
Wow.
Kathleen had
So
just finished presenting an overview of state by state how to get involved. And she was talking specifically about New Hampshire, her home state.
Okay.
And just curious, as you're walking in the door, no pressure, what's it looking like in New Jersey in terms of everything from vouchers to school budgets to protecting marginalized communities? What does it look like this April in New Jersey?
I feel like New Jersey, we are very grateful that we have such a great support system in New Jersey. I feel like we have a strong teachers union that is like fighting for at the federal level as well and sending letters down to Washington, D.C. But then we also have a program like Jersey Can who's fighting for better instruction and we're fighting for, just better education in general. But I feel like New Jersey's in pretty good shape.
Excellent.
would you have a voucher system in your state? Legislation around vouchers?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
It hasn't
Okay.
been a very big topic in New Jersey.
Okay. So maybe that's a good thing, but you understand. So what I presented was that both Title I and IDA block grants are going to be
Hmm.
sent to every state, and the state is going to have to manage that money and distribute that to states. So, do you have any idea now about how that would probably happen in your state, or how that may impact your state?
So we don't necessarily have like a statewide voucher program where like parents and students can apply for that,
Okay.
um, which is pretty good. We do have charter schools that are publicly funded though. And, like I work at a
Charter school.
VOTEC school, so, we are taking students from the public districts, but it's not anything like that you've been explaining, which is you've been doing a great job.
So
I've learned a
yeah,
lot. Because in New Jersey,
yeah.
we don't have these big issues around vouchers. I mean, definitely
Well,
other
you
issues.
will. So
But
there'll be legislation. What I was talking about is that there'll be legislation around the Title I and IDA block grants. Okay,
hmm
and how that will be distributed. Okay, and some of them, they basically are pushing. Project 2025 is pushing that Title I block grants go to vouchers. But there
Right.
will have to be legislation that actually indicates that, okay, that actually says that. And of course, IDA funding, which is kids in special
Right.
needs, those are also going to come down in block grants. So, does your school actually receive Title I or IDA money?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So now those will all be managed at the state level,
Right.
instead of the federal level. So the legislation is going to be very important on what happens to those block grants.
Totally.
Yeah, so that's going to be actually, to me, one of the major issues in every state. Never mind managing those block grants.
Oh, it's
Um,
gonna be a mess
yeah, I can't imagine
managing it.
that everyone that sort of relied on the feds to sort of take care of all of that are now going to have to be managed at a state level. So I come from a Republican state. Okay, although it doesn't vote Republican in the federal elections, we have our legislators and our governor both all Republicans, and we're really very concerned about what will happen to public schools here in the state, because money may be unevenly distributed, or it may not be distributed well, and I think that the cost of vouchers is going to really skyrocket in the end. Again, the whole idea of Project 2025 in this education section is really to erode public schools, and they would like to see them go away completely. Um, really, that's the intent.
Hmm.
And so, um, but Title I and IDA money, is now going to come into play. Probably not in this fiscal year, but probably in the next fiscal year, it definitely will. Because now the Department of Ed is not managing those dollars anymore. Never mind,
So
there's no all the research grants are sort of gone too.
one of the strengths of this work, one of the reasons for the town halls and the Ed Influencers work in general, is the connections we make. And so I was saying to Samantha in the chat box on the side, I met with someone she connected me with in New Jersey, Juan Uvera,
Hmm.
who is doing wonderful work with me, helping to develop micro credentials around advocacy work. And
Nice.
Samantha, he happened to mention to me today that there's an educator running for governor in New Jersey,
Yes.
and
Wow.
he's excited. He's hoping he does well and he gets elected. These are the kinds of things that if we don't talk to each other, if we
Right.
aren't having these conversations and these things don't come up, um, how do you know? Do you know him well enough to tell us a little more about him?
Yeah, I know a little bit. I've met him once. His name
Yep,
is Sean Spiller. He started out as a science high school teacher, and then he's been a mayor of a town, and now he's actually the president of our teachers union.
yeah,
Wow.
And so he is out there and he's campaigning, and it's exciting to see an educator, out there and, competing for that spot, which is very cool.
Yeah.
absolutely. And to
Yeah.
say he's the head of the state teachers union, that's like in your
Mhm.
face pro-education candidate.
My gosh,
Right.
so pro
Right.
education.
Yeah,
So that's really exciting. And I think in New Jersey, we are very fortunate where like we do have a lot of support around education and our school systems are strong because of that.
yes,
But obviously, like with new legislation, new laws being passed at the federal level, like you never know what's going to happen. And so I don't want to put all my eggs
right.
in that basket.
Mhm.
We hear you. We hear you. Um, Let me go ahead and share because Kathleen had mentioned the Padlet site. Um, and we shared this at our last town hall on March 24th, that one of the things as we connect and have these conversations is to share our voices with each other so we don't feel that we're alone. It can be feeling very isolated in our respective states, wondering where the other voices are, wondering how comfortable we are being a lone voice if we feel that way. And so this is our influencer site. We've just recently reformatted it to make it much easier to navigate. We have a wealth of resources, but we were adding things so quickly, it was beginning to get hard to find things. So if you go down to the commit to take action button, Oh, and you'll see EdInfluencers has its own place now right across the top of the website. So you don't have to go digging for that either. It's right there.
Right.
You click on EdInfluencers, that's a big upgrade. And then go to commit to take action and you'll see the Padlet. You'll see a number of educators have already been in here adding their voices. And what we ask is exactly what Kathleen said very succinctly. What do you feel you can do? We're not
Mhm.
asking you to change the world or set the world on fire all by yourself. And we know how frightened everyone is with all these changes and all the sense of that it may not be safe to stick your neck out. It may not be safe to be a lone voice speaking on behalf of education. So you can post here anonymously if you're more comfortable doing that. But the more we get educators to hop on and start sharing their convictions and say, yes, here's what I can do. This is what I see. This is from where I sit, how I can make a difference and speak up for what's best for children. So please know that that's there. And as you're able to add your voice, know that you're helping other educators who feel just like you and I do. You know, how safe is it? Can we have safety in numbers? Can we advocate for education in ways that don't don't take the discussion down, but keep it at a high level and keep it lofty and focused on kids and
Right.
and public education as a cornerstone of democracy.
Hmm.
So Kathleen, thank you for referencing that. And while you're there, take a look at the rest of the Ed Influencers resources. There's plenty there. Kathleen, I didn't mention this to you. We were hustling to get ready to go live.
Uh-huh.
There's a brand new advocacy alert that just got posted this morning, both in the
Okay.
House and the Senate. That's not the advocacy. That is the advocacy alert. That's just not what I meant the action items. Um, Resolutions in both the House and the Senate
Hmm.
expressing support for local public K-12 schools, and the language specifically condemns any actions that defund public education or weaken or dismantle the United States Department of Education. Now, a
Wow.
lot of that has already left the station and it's happening, but these are pieces of legislation in both the House and the Senate. You can read through the language, which is very flowing and supportive and convincing. And then at the bottom, either text PAVZVS on your phone or go to this link, the Resist Spot link. And with a couple of clicks, you can send, it identifies your representatives for you, sends them the statement exactly as it's worded.
Excellent.
And so you've done one more step in helping to be an advocate for education in your own way, without feeling like you're out there by yourself.
And
So,
that's always a really great step because I just want, we should let everyone know that when you get, when they get email or they get messages or you take a stand on a certain piece of legislation, all of that, by the way, gets counted.
yeah,
I've been going to DC for close to 25 years and been in all those offices that are really housed by some very young people, but, you know,
yeah.
people whose job is really actually to respond to constituents and to be able to count or be able to say, I'm for this, please let my representative know, that I contacted you and I'm concerned about this particular bill, or I'd like this, my legislator to support this bill, my representative, our senator. So that's where it all begins. And there's, that is extremely important. So one of the things I'd ask the audience is, set one goal for yourself, okay,
Yeah.
and how you're going to advocate. And um, I probably would have never done this in my life, but I had a really good colleague who asked me 25 years ago to be the advocacy chair for my educational technology organization, who was an affiliate of ISTE. And I decided to do that. I've been going to DC ever since. And, my experience in my younger years was about advocating, was protesting actually during the late 60s.
Yep.
And that's where my advocacy sort of began. But it's so important to be an active citizen here in the United States, especially now.
Yeah.
And it's really good to model that for kids, um, about how you become a really good citizen, how you become a citizen. It's
Hmm.
not just about voting, it's about
No.
giving your voice to things.
Yep.
Because we live in a democracy, we can speak, okay, and let our legislators know where we stand. Or you can actually, as I said, even the local legislators are very important. And I've been sort of procrastinating, but I really think I want to call one of them and just say, can we meet for coffee? Can we talk about this legislation that's coming up? And I
Yep.
definitely want to talk about this Title One and this IDA legislation, IDA block grants that are going to arrive at our doorstep, and what's going to happen to them. If you're concerned, which you should be, because it really impacts most of the schools in the United States.
Yep.
And very important that you sort of respond and let your legislators know what you're thinking and how you could support them
Amen.
in some way.
Amen. And you can see on the screen, I've changed the settings so you each have voice capability. If you want to unmute, you can just join the conversation. You don't have to be on screen. Chat box is also open. We're hearing from Ramona in Georgia. I think now is the time to be proactive since we know block grants are going to states and that legislation will follow. Crafting language that is actually pro-public education can be a way to
Right.
shape the future.
Excellent. Thank you so much for saying that.
And I know a lot of the folks here on the call have had central office leadership experience, so you understand traditionally how IDEA and and all these programs being dismantled were significant in our district budgets,
Right.
and they were protected. You could not. I remember many years sitting with senior staff and figuring out the budget for the coming year. Of course, there's crunches and local taxes and all the things that go into forming a budget. But there was specific non-supplant language that you could not touch
Right.
these funds for special education, special needs
Right.
students, and other programs because they were earmarked specifically for those services. And turning them into block grants and saying, well, they're still going to go to the states. Well, okay, but they're coming to the states without any earmarks for these programs. And so
Right.
if you're vocal locally and let your states know the needs that you see as an educator for special populations and for long-time programs that apparently aren't going to be funded federally any longer, it can help, as Ramona said, inform that discussion so that it may
Mhm.
look like, oh, look, we have a windfall. It's raining money and no one's telling us we have to spend it where it used to be spent. Setting those expectations quickly before the money lands in their laps, because we know what happens to money when um, it's just there for the spending. Richard, please.
Yeah, just enjoying the discussion here and so forth. It's kind of scary and frightening, but we do have a voice. What I wanted to offer, one thing we do in Illinois, I've worked with Illinois ASCD for many, many years, and Walter knows our very busy affiliate,
Oh, yeah.
is I have a very close relationship with both my House and state senator. And one thing that we've done is with Whole Child Left Behind initiatives. We've actually had every year is March is Whole Child Month. I've worked in with my legislatures, and they put it into a very nice, glossy resolution at the House and Senate. Then we get a nice quasi leather bound addition to that. And that's a good segue into what I think will be much more meaty kinds of things. And so I think we're off to a good start here. And I like your comments, Kathleen, about the title grants, IDEA and Title One going to block grants, and the states can do whatever they want with it
Yeah.
based on the 20
Right.
Project 2025. But just as a thought, if people have never done this before, they're a little nervous, I think that's too heavy or too meaty to start. Go into your state legislators with the Whole Child Initiative, which is a sure brainer. It's a no brainer. It's a very sure shoe in that we've had done every year. In fact, now it's mainly a phone call away. Can you roll that over for us? And basically the way that works, if the senator changes or the House changes, then you have to reapply again, and the senator does that for you. But if they're still in office, the resolutions stay pat in Springfield. So, side note, it's not as heavy duty as these others, but it's a good segue, good way to meet and work with your state legislatures on something that they always agree with.
Mhm.
Thank you, Richard. And you're another educator that as a state, you have an actual governor in place that you can be very proud of, who's,
Well, Pritzker.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely representing for
Mhm.
what's best.
Illinois is very blue. Chicago, the city of Chicago, Chicago Public Schools, mayor, everybody, it's just blue, blue, blue.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would dare say, Samantha, New Jersey too. My parents lived in New Jersey for years, and always thought of it as a blue state, a Democratic state. I know it's had Republican leadership, so it's not fast and dry, but yeah.
We go back to Mayor Daley days, the Daley Kingdom.
Well, there you go.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I
Called the
remember that.
machine. Vote early, vote
Yep.
often.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So here in Virginia, now that I finished saying that about New Jersey, it's occurring to me. New
Mhm.
Jersey is that way. Virginia is that way too, that we have very blue pockets, very red pockets. And when we've had Democratic administrations, Virginia has gone blue. And when we've had Republican administrations, it's leaned red. Um, Current governor is Republican. He has pushed through a number of things that are, pro-friendly to private schools and to more conservative interests. What's interesting in Virginia is the governor can only serve for one term, so you don't have this sense of once you're in, you can stay in and keep pushing a long-term agenda. So we will see what happens when the next gubernatorial election comes up, and if we go blue again, there's definitely a lot of the line here in the Commonwealth of Virginia for public education and how those dollars are spent.
Well, they always complain that Republicans are gerrymandering things, but I can say maybe proudly or not, Illinois, it's the Democrats
Well,
that are doing
yes,
Mhm.
major, major gerrymandering with
yeah,
the maps.
We have sort of a split personality in our particular state where the governor and our legislators, state legislators, are Republican dominated, but our federal, our senators and representatives are Democrats.
yeah,
So it's sort of like that split personality. And actually, New Hampshire votes Democrat during the federal elections
yeah,
as well. So, but you have to understand a lot of people move here from Massachusetts because of our tax system
yeah,
here.
yeah,
But they'll be unpleasantly surprised when all these taxes go up significantly, and
Right.
we're
yep,
looking at something going up significantly actually in the next couple of years. So I
yeah,
say our property tax really supports schools in our state. It's very different than other states.
yeah. It
Right.
is.
And
It's
like
very unique.
90% of what I pay for property tax is going to a school.
Right.
Right, right.
I would
So,
say on a final note, we're very proud of Tammy Duckworth
Oh
and Dick
yeah,
Durbin.
yep,
I think they have national recognition.
they do.
mhm, for
Absolutely.
sure, for sure.
So, other people on the call, you're on no obligation to jump on, but Fran in California, Isabel in Ohio, Lee in Maine, anything you'd feel comfortable sharing about your states and what things look like on the ground in your respective states? Not necessarily with regard to vouchers, but just in general with education. And certainly, we have a wonderful New Jersey contingent here, so all of our New Jersey friends that are on, feel free to add to Samantha's voice.
So I'll just jump in here.
Yes, Ramona.
Hey, South Carolina is my technical
Right,
state of residency,
right.
and I've had the privilege of being involved at the local level with education initiatives. And one thing that surprises me about South Carolina, knowing the way that they generally go with politics, is
Mhm.
that for the past probably 2 decades, at the very least, the past decade, they've managed to stave off the voucher system. So it
Mhm.
will be very interesting with this new change of events to see how the public responds to it. Somehow, um, although public education struggles in the state in many ways, it still seems to be a value that's held by the citizens of the state. So, and I live in South Carolina, but I work in Georgia. So, um, I think Georgia is closer to embracing vouchers for various reasons. The seat of power is different because Georgia has a lot of, South Carolina does as well, a lot of rural areas. And so a lot of times they are fall to the will of those that have the money and the power. So, but I think in both cases, the more informed people are in a way that shows them what it means for them, then the better the chance is to sort of stem the tide.
Yes. Well said. Well said. Marie and Joanne, any thoughts from where you're sitting? And certainly Vivian, Terry, Clayton, we'd love to hear how things are going in your state. Isabel's posted, Ohio spent nearly $1 billion on vouchers last year, and now our house is trying to fund our public schools using 2022 data. Isabel, how does that work? That doesn't add up. How do you, that is not going to balance. Amen, it does not work. Any of us that have been in schools having to administer budgets know that does not work.
Hey, Cheryl.
Hey,
Hey,
Cheryl.
folks.
Hey, how are you? We're
Hanging on.
comparing notes across states, and since you're from the great state of Texas these days, feel free to chime in. I'm sure you have news.
Oh, plenty. There's plenty going on over here in Crazyville.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys passed that voucher law in your state this past year, so
Past what?
a voucher law, the school
Well,
vouchers,
it didn't
right?
get passed. You know,
It
it didn't
didn't.
get passed.
No.
Ah,
Abbott wants it, but we've continued to fight on it. No, what they passed is giving funding to school districts who institute the Bluebonnet curriculum, which is a Christian
ah,
Bible-based curriculum.
Oh,
right.
okay. All right.
$60 per student if you implement it.
Wow.
Wow.
And it doesn't matter, I'm a Christian person,
Sure.
but it doesn't matter.
No.
You don't pay to teach a Bible-based curriculum more than you do to a school district which doesn't adopt the Bluebonnet curriculum. So it is so nuts. I can't even believe it. In fact, there's some lawsuits going on, but who knows what'll happen if it gets to this. Well, if it gets to the Fifth Circuit, they'll say, great.
Right.
They did on
Right.
E-rate. And then if it goes to the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
that's a
Who knows?
crapshoot. Who knows? I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
you make more money going to Vegas.
Yeah. And how does that compare with Louisiana? What are you hearing from back home there?
They're they haven't done that nutty thing.
Well,
They're still pushing voucher stuff, but it hasn't gotten any worse. There is they've drawn off funds that there are some minimum reimbursements for public and private, which is for years,
yeah.
but not in light of probably what DC would like to see happen.
Well, I was talking earlier, Cheryl, that Title I funds are really going to be in block grants now. to states, and they're really encouraging it to be used for vouchers.
Mhm.
Okay, so all those school districts that receive Title I funds in every state in the country, okay, could be distributing that money to vouchers, and that would cover, you know, that's if you have a voucher law. So your law hasn't been passed, but this
Well,
may be an
it's pay
impetus to do
attention
that.
time. You know, it's reach out and pay attention time.
Yeah.
I'm doing a webinar tomorrow morning about to the all the superintendents, I don't know, 150 people in Oklahoma
Hmm.
about the E-rate funding chaos.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff and advocacy stuff. And they, I mean, they just got ruled down that they couldn't use state funds to buy a Trump Bible for
Yeah.
every classroom.
Yeah. It's
I'm
crazy.
like, what?
How is that even a discussion? Yeah.
Didn't we have something around the separation of church and state and all that other stuff?
We used to
Right.
I
have
mean,
that.
that's the foundation really to our
Yeah,
Yeah.
to our country, isn't it?
I don't know, Kathleen. We used to have a lot of things, honey.
I know.
We used to have a lot of things like a democracy, and we used to. I don't know what's going on.
Well,
Well, you
a
Because
couple
know,
of other things that have happened here in Virginia, and they're coming to my mind as we're talking. Um, Districts just south of me here in Virginia have been notifying parents that they're no longer providing services to children with special needs. They don't have the money, and they're not going to be able to provide those
wow.
services.
Oh,
They're already
well.
sending it out
Ooh,
now in March and April. And I was just
ooh.
talking with some colleagues who have already been notified that their entire department that they led, it will not be continued next year, and that they're all
well,
going
I
to
don't
need to be looking for
understand with
jobs.
the Individuals with Disability Act how they cannot offer
Right.
services. I mean, how can they get by with that, Walter?
Well, as you
They're going
suggested,
to
it's
get
going to wind
sued.
up in the courts. Yep, it'll run its course. But the fact that they're even comfortable sending those letters out, because what do parents
Wow.
do? They immediately show everyone and say, "Look what they're doing to my child. Look, how can they do this?"
And then they're
So,
gonna get some good
yep,
attorneys doing
yep,
pro bono work. And
yep.
Oh, absolutely.
It'll run its course. But the same with
You're
these people
requ
I know that do wonderful work, and were just notified in the last week they don't have a job after June. And there's 30 people in this particular department. It's like, how do you just wipe that out? Well, it's a budget decision. That's what it is. This isn't,
well,
they
it,
appreciated the work in the department, but they had to find cuts. So
I would be
it's,
asking, I mean, that's federal money. IDA is federal
yeah,
money. So
yeah,
they have to hold that accountable somewhere, okay?
yep,
And IEPs are legal documents, okay? And
right.
they have to be accountable for those
Oh yeah.
IEPs. So,
At least in the world we've lived in, yes.
well, yes, for sure. But the thing is
in the
that,
Twilight Zone, I don't know
well,
where we now live. What were you saying, Kathleen, about that that it's going to be block grants? I hadn't seen anything that said
yes,
it
yes.
it
Title
has
One,
it
yeah,
has been
it will
approved.
be. Oh, yes. I mean, once they disband the Department of Education, okay, I think in the next fiscal year, both Title One and IDA funds will go as block grants to each state, and
Yeah,
states
and
will have to.
I think that's the plan, but I think we should say that that is the plan, and
It is a plan.
that's why you're here raising these issues for people to raise their own red flags
Yep,
about this.
yep,
Because I don't want anybody to say, well, that hasn't happened. This is,
Well,
I think we
right,
want to tell people you need to get involved. You need to get engaged because this
right.
is the plan.
right.
Well, this is the plan. The
A-
block grants are the plan, and they're encouraging that the Title One funds go to
And
vouchers if
that's
you
what the
have a special.
department that's the plan in the department.
Right.
I just got a text a minute ago from someone who's at ASU GSV, and that's where
Yep.
the World Wrestling Federation woman is, also known as the fake Secretary of Education.
Yep.
Right.
She was speaking there at ASU GSV, and this is what she said. We need to worry about A1, that it's coming into, she's talking about AI. And she was reading off stuff and she saw the I as one. And she kept saying in her speech to this group, A1. And one of my friends says, I guess that's what they're talking. She thinks it's a steak sauce, A1.
It was steak sauce,
The
right.
whole time she was talking over and over again, she said A1.
Yeah.
Now
Yep. Clueless.
that is what we're dealing with, is that she is the Secretary of Education and doesn't even know to read off a teleprompter or her script that it's AI.
Right.
She
Right.
calls it A1. And my guy said, I recorded it, Cheryl. I said, you better send it to me because I don't know if I believe you. So he's going to send me the recording of her saying A1. Don't you think I'm going to post that on social media?
Oh
You
yeah.
can bet your
yeah.
bottom dollar I am.
Yeah.
Look at Samantha laughing at me.
Well,
Samantha,
and
you
to
can tell I no longer work in a school district because I
right,
am
you can talk, right?
sassy.
Right.
So the action items link, I just put it in the
Yes.
chat box. And Cheryl, I had mentioned this before you were able to hop on, that there's a brand new action item there. Share it real quick on a resolution both in the House and the Senate in support of local public K-12 schools, specifically condemning any actions that defund public education or weaken or dismantle the U.S. Department of Ed. And to your point, they've really pushed to get a lot done in a short period of time since January 20th, but people are starting to pop their heads up. And that initial push is giving way to people asking questions. So now is the time to go to a page like this, look through the language, and then we've created the ability for you to, through a couple of clicks, to add your voice. It automatically figures out who your representatives are, sends the language exactly as written in your behalf. Yeah, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to have a voice and have a say in everything that's happening.
Let me
So,
ask you this. Are you willing to put something there where people could click to send something about how important E-rate is?
of course.
Yeah.
Because I could use a link tomorrow.
Can you get it to me this evening after we're done and we'll get it up overnight?
Yes, and
Okay.
then I can put that link in my slide deck for tomorrow to all these people where
Beautiful.
they can go to this to visit spot. Yeah, I'll send you a
Just give me
quick
some
little thing after
language.
this is over, some language.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Wonderful.
Yeah, and then we'll
So,
push people to it,
yeah,
Oklahoma people to this site.
glad to help. So we're at the top of the hour. Kathleen, thank you for the presentation. Samantha and
Okay.
Cheryl, thank you for hopping on when you could. I know life is crazy busy. Our next town hall, now that I'm looking at here we go. Our next town hall is Tuesday, April 29th at 7 o'clock. The focus is going to be on NAEP results and strategies. We're excited to have that discussion. So as you can, let me put the link in. I thought I already had it.
Is
Let
it
me
the
put
29th, or the 28th? Is one on
uh
Tuesday?
the 29th, Tuesday. And
Okay, all right.
where
Okay.
am I? I had the link up and then I moved
Are
to
we
another
live
Okay.
page.
yet?
So here's the link to register.
Are we live yet?
I think so.
We are live?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yes.
Oh, great. I didn't know if it was everybody else joining us or not.
Oh yeah, yeah. So
I hope
So
they
thank
didn't
you,
hear me
everybody.
say about crazy times.
Right. Well, um, I really appreciate everyone coming, and please invite others to the meetings that we happen to have, and go to the EdInfluencers website and take a look at what we have there.